Welcome back, everybody. It's Zach here, bringing you guys another fantasy football video. In this one, I'll be going over 5 players that really stood out to me as really bad auction values on the Sleeper platform. This is the 4th video in a series I'm doing where what I did is I went through the consensus ADPs across all the major platforms, and then I went through and looked at the pre-draft value of each player on those platforms. And what I've done is I've made a regression model that tells me how much a player should cost based off of their consensus ADP. And what I'm doing is I'm comparing that to the actual pre-draft value listed on the platform you're drafting on. That way I can generate a list of which players stand out as great or really bad values on each platform. I think this is typically something that people sleep on a little bit. The impact that your platform has on how much players go for is incredibly large, even in drafts with really knowledgeable and smart people. It's just, for whatever reason, you see a number up on your screen, it feels like that's the fair price, regardless of whatever that number actually ends up being. So it's certainly going to dictate how much things cost in your draft, and understanding where you can target good values should be really great strategy here. So hopefully you guys find this video useful. It's been a lot of fun. If you guys do want the full spreadsheet, because I'm only going to talk about 5 players in this video, just email me. I'll drop my email in the description of the video below. You can email me. I'll send it back to you and get you guys that full sheet. It's free. Just want to help you guys out and hopefully help you guys dominate some leagues this season. So yeah, let's do it. Let's get into the video. So starting out with the single worst value on Sleeper right now, it's actually JSN, which kind of sucks because I'm kind of excited about JSN this season, and I think he's a great player, and at consensus ADP, I really don't mind his current price tag, but on Sleeper, there's a lot to be concerned about. Based off of his current consensus ADP, he should cost you roughly $24, which I think is really fair. I've got no problem doing that, but on Sleeper, he's going to cost you $35. It means he's $11 more expensive on Sleeper than what he is on a standard platform, and $11 is quite a bit. Like, that's like typically like a running back 2 price tag. So basically, drafting JSN on Sleeper puts you out of a running back 2 that you should have had on your roster if you drafted him on a different platform. So it's still not the worst pick. I think there's a lot of upside associated with JSN. I think there's reason to be at least somewhat optimistic about the Seattle offense after what we saw in preseason here. At the same time, though, I think this is going to be a really run-heavy team. You're going to need JSN to be incredibly hyper-targeted when this team is throwing the ball, and you're going to need Sam Darnold to play well for this to pay off, and you're just adding on a lot of risk at this current price tag. So I love JSN, the player. I don't mind drafting him on platforms like ESPN and a snake draft or something, but if you're drafting him in auction, doing it on Sleeper just feels like a really tough price to pay right now. Next up, we've got Sam Laporta, who slots in as the worst value at tight end, and actually the worst percentage value of any player here. So by ADP, he should cost you roughly $13, but on Sleeper, he's going to cost you $21. So at tight end, that's just horrendous. You're spending almost double on Sam Laporta what you should be spending there. $21 is a really significant price tag to be spending on a player that's typically like a late 3rd round kind of price tag, and like I do not want to spend a late 3rd round draft pick on a snake draft on Sam Laporta at all. I feel iffy about doing that on a guy like George Kittle. Sam Laporta is clearly a tier below that, so I am by no means excited about drafting Sam Laporta here. In a snake draft, if he slips, if you're getting Sam Laporta in like round 6, I think that's okay, but getting him here, you're paying like a late round 3 price tag. There's just no way I'm dropping $21 on Sam Laporta, especially with how many great players you can get for $21 and how many tight ends I think you should be able to get for $1 later that I think are going to be closer to Sam Laporta than you'd like if you're spending 21 on Laporta. So I'm not doing it. I don't see myself drafting Laporta on Sleeper at all this season. Next, we got Patrick Mahomes, who I'm kind of fading regardless of the value you see on the Sleeper platform here, but he slots in as the worst value on Sleeper at the quarterback position. Based off of his consensus ADP, you should be spending roughly $13 on Patrick Mahomes, and I already talked about how I don't think even that is necessarily a fair price tag. Like, I think Patrick Mahomes is more valuable in name than he actually is for fantasy right now. You're going to see a Rashee Rice suspension at some point. Travis Kelce's getting older. We haven't seen Patrick Mahomes be good for fantasy since 2022. So it's been a while, right, since Patrick Mahomes came out here and had a good fantasy season for us. And then spending $20 on him on Sleeper, that's just way too much. I just can't see myself overpaying for Patrick Mahomes. He's not a player that I'm excited about enough to deal with the poor value that the Sleeper platform is offering here. So I'm not really drafting Mahomes anywhere, and I'm definitely not going to draft him on Sleeper unless there's just like a crazy value that presents itself during the Sleeper draft. But you're not going to see that. You're not going to see Mahomes go for $10 in Sleeper with that pre-draft value of 20. So I'm out on him on Sleeper right now. Next up, we've got Joe Mixon, who makes this list. And it's typical when we see these guys that have sort of like sudden injury news or just sudden bad news or sudden really good news, you typically see those values sort of lag a little bit on auction drafts. I think typically that's because the platforms and the formats that get the most attention, they're snake drafts, right? You've got a lot more people doing mock snake drafts, a lot more people focused on just rankings than actual auction values. So you sort of see the auction values lag behind news a little bit. And I think this is really what's sort of forcing this really poor value on Joe Mixon, because obviously we've gotten some bad news about Joe Mixon lately, right? We've got the injury news, his foot's clearly bothering him. We have no idea how bad. We're getting really close to the season, right? So it's becoming more and more likely that Joe Mixon's going to miss extended time. Based off of his consensus ADP right now, he should cost you roughly $8. I think that's an okay price tag, right? Like you're drafting him as like a high-end bench piece. And then hoping that he comes in later in the year and ends up being like a high-end running back 2 for you. And that feels okay, right? Especially for a guy that if he's missing time, at least you can throw him on IR. But on Sleeper right now, that pre-draft value has not caught up to his ADP. You're currently supposed to spend $16 on Sleeper if you want to get Joe Mixon. Again, that's like you're paying late third. It's like a mid fourth round draft pick capital there, maybe at late fourth, early fifth. Joe Mixon typically should be drafted in like the 8th or 9th round right now. So based off of his current ADP, I don't mind drafting him in a snake draft, but we need to see that auction ADP, auction pre-draft value catch up before I'm going to trust him there. So I'm not drafting Joe Mixon on Sleeper unless this consensus pre-draft value drops quite a bit, and until it does, he's just not going to be on many of my rosters. And the last player we're going to talk about here is going to be David Montgomery. He feels like a safe bet to finish as a low-end running back 2, and I don't think that's a problem at all. But at ADP, he should only cost you about $10, and if that were his price point, I would have no problem drafting him, right? Like, I think you could justify spending $10 on a guy that's just going to be a really safe running back 2 with touchdown upside every single week. The problem is on Sleepy, you're spending roughly $18 to get David Montgomery on your roster. I talked about how like in that $20 range ends up being like a late third, early fourth kind of price tag. That means that you're drafting David Montgomery, who's typically going in like the 6th or 7th round, at a price point that should be more indicative of a player going in the 4th. That's just too high. You would never take David Montgomery in the 4th round. It does not make sense to draft David Montgomery on Sleeper at this current price. If you can get him for $10, I've got no problem with that. But paying double for a guy like Montgomery, who really doesn't have the kind of ceiling that's going to make a difference for you unless we see an injury to Jahmyr Gibbs, it's just not worth the risk. If I'm going to overpay for a player, it's got to be a player that I have a lot of conviction in, a player that I think has a chance to sort of break fantasy or significantly overperform his ADP without an injury happening. Like, I'm not going to overpay for a handcuff running back because there's upside associated with him if there's an injury. Montgomery sort of fits the bill, except he gets to be an RB2 unless there's an injury. So I'm not drafting Montgomery at this current price tag. I love Montgomery. I've been super high on him for a couple years now, but I prefer to draft him in a snake draft or on a different platform. Just on Sleeper, at this price tag, I can't do it. So that'll do it for the worst auction values in the Sleeper platform. Up next, I'll be going over the 5 best values on the Yahoo platform. I'm still working on compiling all those values. Yahoo does a little bit of it makes it a little bit more difficult to pull that data. So I'm still working on that. So a couple of you guys have asked for the spreadsheet. You'll notice the actual Yahoo pre-draft values aren't in there yet, or the best values there. I'm working on that. I'll have that done this weekend, and the videos will come out early next week. So don't worry, that stuff's coming. Those will be the next videos. It should be a lot of fun. Hopefully you guys are finding this enjoyable and helpful. If you guys do want the full spreadsheet, like I mentioned, I'll drop my email in the description, so you can just let me know in the comments below. I will get you guys that spreadsheet so you can use it to help dominate your leagues this season. So it should be a lot of fun. If you guys have any comments or questions, let me know in the comments below. If you haven't already, there's going to be a ton of content coming out every single week. Make sure you subscribe to the channel, click the bell so you get notifications when new videos come out. All the time people tell me that I helped them win their leagues last season or over the last couple years. I love hearing that stuff, and hopefully you subscribe and I can help you guys win your leagues this season. Should be a lot of fun. Give the video a thumbs up if you haven't already, and I will catch you guys with the next one. Peace, guys. Thank you guys for watching. If you haven't already, please be sure to subscribe to the channel, like the video, check out these other videos here if you haven't. If you want more content, please feel free to follow me on Twitter at RealSteelFFB. I'll be more active on there as the season goes on. Thanks. Catch you later.